I'm Maya Thompson, and I never thought my front porch would feel like a battlefield. One evening, after a long shift troubleshooting software bugs at my tech support job in Columbus, Ohio, I pulled into the driveway of my new house, my first real home, a small 3-bedroom with creaky floors and a backyard just big enough for my old camper. The keys were still a novelty, jangling in my hand, a reminder I'd finally carved out something of my own. But as I stepped toward the door, I heard it, the high-pitched squeal of kids laughing, too many footsteps thumping up my front steps. My escabrelac twisted. I hadn't invited anyone when I opened the door. There they were, my family, unannounced, standing on my porch like they'd been invited to a barbecue. My younger brother Lucas, 3 years my junior, pushed his sunglasses up and scanned the porch like he was appraising it for a real estate listing. His wife, Lauren, stood to the side, cradling their youngest, a baby wrapped in a blue blanket, her lips curled in that fake smile she always wore around me, like we were old friends instead of near strangers. Their 3 kids were already spreading out, 6-year-old Liam pressing his face against my living room window, smudging the glass. My mom, Ivy, stepped forward first, not waiting for permission, her eyes sweeping the entryway. "Maya, this place is something else," she said, her voice sharp, like she was tallying up the square footage. My dad, Gabriel, trailed behind, nodding silently, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. Lucas didn't even look at me as he followed Mom inside, but Lauren met my gaze, her smile tightening. "It's gorgeous," she said. "So much space." I froze in the doorway, my keys digging into my palm. I hadn't given them my address. Not once. I'd moved here to start fresh, to leave behind the years of being invisible in their world. Growing up in a small Ohio town, I was the kid who faded into the background, quiet, into computers, always cleaning up after Lucas, the golden boy who could do no wrong. I learned early that asking for anything, a ride, a kind word, a moment of attention, meant hearing Mom say I was too sensitive, or Dad staring out the window like I wasn't there. I left at 17, and I hadn't seen them in years. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when I posted a photo of my new porch steps online, captioned with one word: home. Somehow they'd found me. And the way they moved through my house, Mom touching the walls, Lucas eyeing the ceilings, Lauren commenting on the generous layout, felt like they were already claiming it. I stood in the hallway, my back against the wall, watching them fan out like they belonged here. Liam ran to the kitchen, shouting about where he'd put his toys. Lauren bounced the baby, humming, her eyes darting to every corner. Lucas muttered something about the house being closer to work than I expected. My heart pounded, not with surprise, but with a sinking certainty. This wasn't a visit. This was a plan, one they hadn't bothered to tell me about. I'd spent my life being pushed aside for them, and now, standing in my own home, I felt that familiar ache, the one that came from knowing I was still the outsider. But this time, it was my door they'd walked through. And I wasn't a kid anymore, looking at my family in my house. I felt like I was 13 again, standing in our old living room in that small Ohio town, watching Lucas get away with everything. He was the star, 3 years younger, louder, messier, always forgiven. One afternoon, he'd thrown a soccer ball at the TV, cracking the screen. I'd yelled, furious, and Mom had sent me to my room for causing a scene. Dad just looked out the window, pretending he didn't hear. By 11, I was doing the family's laundry, folding Lucas's jerseys while he played video games. By 13, I was packing his lunches, setting his backpack by the door so he wouldn't forget it. If I slipped up, Mom would sigh, "Maya, you're not helping the family." Lucas's birthday meant a new gaming console. Mine meant a grocery store cake and a card signed "Love, the Carters." No names. Mom loved showing Lucas off to neighbors. Our little athlete, she'd beam. Me? I was Maya. She's into computers or something. When I brought home an A in math, no one blinked. When Lucas passed science with AD, we went out for burgers to celebrate effort. Once, when I was 15, he shoved me into a wall during one of his games. My shoulder bruised purple, but Mom made me promise not to tell Grandma at Thanksgiving. "We don't need drama," she said, not with Lucas's soccer season. I stopped asking for anything after that. No prom dress, no rides to the library where I'd stay late, teaching myself to code in the quiet of the computer lab. It was the only place I felt safe. At 17, I couldn't take it anymore. One night, I grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with a hoodie, my coding notebooks, and $180 I'd saved from babysitting. I printed a bus schedule at the library and left without a goodbye. Mom's last words were that I shouldn't come back until I had direction. I was still in high school, but direction wasn't the issue. I'd stopped being useful to them. I couch surfed with friends, graduated on time, no family in the audience. No call, no card. I told myself it was better that way. Clean breaks heal faster. After that, I built my life alone. Lucas married Lauren at 22. I saw the photos online, her in a white dress, him grinning like he'd never hurt anyone. They had kids fast, moved into mom and dad's house to save on childcare. Mom posted about her grandkids constantly, 3 generations under one roof. I wasn't in a single photo. Behind their backs, I was the one who left, the one who didn't get what family meant. I'd made my peace with it, or so I thought, until they showed up on my porch, walking into my new life like they'd never left me behind. Seeing them in my house brought back the worst moments of my life, like when everything fell apart a few years back. I'd been working as a tech support contractor in Columbus, helping a logistics company keep their software running. But when the world shut down, my job was the first to go. No severance, just an email and a paycheck that barely covered rent. My roommate bailed to her parents' place in Indiana, leaving me with a condo lease I couldn't afford alone. I sold my furniture, my monitors, even a mirror I loved, just to scrape by that last month. When the lease ended, I had nowhere to go. All I had was my truck, a beat-up Chevy with more rust than paint, and a second-hand camper I'd bought on a whim for $1,200, thinking I'd go camping someday. I never did. Instead, I bolted it to the truck bed, swept out the cobwebs, and made it my home. A foam mattress, a mini fridge, a bin of clothes, that was it. The first night, I parked behind a strip mall off High Street. Streetlights buzzed overhead, and some kids threw a soda can at my tailgate after midnight. I didn't sleep, just lay there, hands pressed against the camper's walls, listening for trouble. I called Mom and Dad, swallowing my pride, and asked if I could park in their driveway for a bit. Mom didn't hesitate. "That won't work," she said. "The kids are here. It's too crowded." Lucas got on the phone next, his voice smug. "If you want to park here, you'll pay rent." The number he threw out was twice what a local lot would have cost. I hung up without a word. After that, it was parking lots, grocery store corners, empty office parks, a quiet street by the Scioto River. I charged my batteries at laundromats, used solar panels when I could, showered at a gym or a gas station sink. I ate cold canned soup, and when my fridge broke one summer night, I lost everything I had. Then I found a warehouse job in a nearby city, working night shifts to avoid a commute. I parked in the back lot, and the owner didn't care as long as I showed up on time. He let me use a water tap and an outlet by the generator, even cleared a spot so I could unhook the camper and drive the truck. It wasn't much, but it was steady. 2 winters passed like that, and I never told my family where I was. They didn't ask. I thought I'd left them behind for good, until they walked into my new home, acting like they'd never turn me away. Standing in my hallway, watching my family roam my house like it was theirs, I felt the air grow heavy. Mom kept touching the walls, saying, "Maya, you've done so well for yourself." It wasn't pride in her voice, it was calculation. Dad nodded, silent as ever, while Lucas pointed at the baseboards, muttering about good bones. Lauren, still holding the baby, walked from room to room, her voice syrupy. 3 bedrooms? That's so generous. Almost more than one person needs. Her words landed like a punch. I knew then this wasn't about catching up. They had a plan, and I was the last to know. I'd bought this house with every penny I'd saved from my warehouse job, a small fixer-upper in a quiet Columbus suburb. It wasn't fancy, unpainted walls, a creaky staircase, but it was mine. I'd posted a photo of the porch steps online, my hand holding the keys, captioned home. I hadn't shared the address, but Lauren had a knack for digging up what she wanted. Now, As Liam ran through the kitchen shouting about where his toys would go, I felt my chest tighten. I'd spent years building a life without them, and here they were, acting like they could just take it. Lucas finally turned to me, hands in his pockets, his voice too casual. "Got a minute?" he said. The others slipped outside, Mom herding the kids, Lauren humming to the baby, Dad staring at the ground. I followed Lucas to the kitchen. He leaned against my counter like he already owned it. "This place is great, Maya," he said, "but it's a lot, right? I mean, you've got the camper. You know how to live light." He paused, then kept going. "Lauren and I, the kids, we're expecting another. This house is 15 minutes from my real estate gigs. We could move in, just till we're on our feet. You could set up the camper in the backyard again. You're used to it." His smile said he thought this was settled, like I'd just nod and hand over my keys. I didn't speak. My mind raced back to all the times I'd been pushed aside, doing Lucas's chores, hiding his bruises, leaving home because I wasn't needed anymore. I'd always known they'd come for what I had, but I never thought they'd be this bold. My hands shook, not with fear but with a quiet, burning anger. I let the silence stretch, watching Lucas's smile falter, and I knew I wasn't giving up my home. Not this time. 3 days after Lucas's proposal, I came home from work, a bag of takeout tacos in the passenger seat, ready for a quiet night. But as I pulled into my driveway, I saw it. A moving truck backed up to my porch, its ramp scraping my steps. Lucas's van was parked beside it, and my front door was wide open. Boxes were stacked in the entryway, kids' toys scattered across the floor. I could hear a cartoon blaring from my living room. My heart sank, not with shock, but with a sickening clarity. They were moving in. Lucas stepped out, holding a lamp, and nodded like I was late to their party. Lauren appeared behind him, baby on her hip, her smile all sweetness. "It's happening, Maya," she said. "We're so grateful you're letting us stay." Her words felt like a script, rehearsed and hollow. I didn't move from the driveway. My hands gripped the steering wheel, the tacos forgotten. I walked to my truck's door, locked it, and pulled out my phone to call the police. As the line rang, Lauren tapped on my window, her voice soft but sharp. "You don't have to do this," she said. "It's better for the kids. Your mom said it's fine. You always listen to her, don't you?" The 911 operator answered, and I gave my name, my address, and the truth. My house was being taken without my consent. When the officers arrived, Lauren tried to charm them, talking about family needs. Lucas stayed inside, pretending to assemble a crib. I showed the police my driver's license, the deed, and pointed to the front door's lock, drilled out, the old knob tossed in the dirt, a power drill still plugged in nearby. Lucas emerged holding papers. "We have a lease," he said, handing it over. My name was on it, my signature too, but it wasn't mine. The loops were wrong, the slant off, my middle name misspelled. I held it next to my ID for the officer to see. "This is fraud," I said, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. Lauren's smile vanished. She started talking over herself, saying it was for the kids, for their future. Mom and Dad pulled up then, Mom marching toward the officers, her voice firm. "My daughter agreed to this," she lied. I didn't look at her. I just handed the fake lease to the officer and said, loud enough for everyone, "This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a felony. And if anyone steps into my house again, I'll press charges." My hands stopped shaking. For the first time, I felt like I was the one in control. The officer examined the lease, comparing it to my ID. He nodded, his face unreadable, and turned to Lucas. "This doesn't add up," he said. Lucas's mouth opened, then closed, his confidence crumbling. Lauren's voice spiked, insisting it was all for the kids, but the officer cut her off. "Ma'am, forging a signature is a crime." I stood there, my back straight, watching the scene unfold like I was outside my own body. Part of me wanted to scream, to ask how they could think I'd let them take my home. But another part, the part that had survived on canned soup and strip mall parking lots, felt calm, almost cold. I'd fought too hard for this place to let them walk over me. Lauren snapped first. She grabbed the lease from Lucas, tore it in half, then into smaller pieces, tossing them onto the porch like confetti. The wind scattered them across my lawn. One officer told her to pick them up. She ignored him, her face red, clutching the baby tighter. Lucas said nothing, just stared at the ground. Mom's jaw clenched, but she didn't speak. Dad shuffled behind her, looking like he wanted to disappear. The officers told them to leave the property immediately. No arguments, no pleading, just silence as they gathered their boxes and toys. Lauren shot me a look, her eyes wet but hard, like I'd betrayed her. They loaded the moving truck and drove off, Mom's car following close behind. I stayed in the driveway until the taillights vanished, the tacos still cold in my truck. The officers waited, making sure they were gone. Then one handed me his card. "Get that lock fixed," he said. "And call us if they come back." I nodded, my throat tight. When I finally walked inside, the house felt too quiet, the cartoons still playing on the TV. I turned it off, picked up a stray toy truck, and set it on the counter. My hands were steady now, but my chest ached, not with sadness, but with the weight of standing my ground. I'd reclaimed my home, but I knew they'd left the door ajar, waiting for another chance. I wasn't going to let them take it. Christmas Eve came with a chill in the air and the smell of Aunt Clara's pecan pie baking in my kitchen. I'd invited 10 people to my house. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, my uncle, his wife, and a couple of college friends who drove 3 hours from Cleveland just to be there. We had folding chairs, potluck dishes, and a scratch CD of Motown Christmas hits playing low. The house felt alive, full of laughter and clinking plates, the kind of warmth I'd never known growing up. No one mentioned my family, but they'd all seen my post about the moving truck incident before I locked down my social media. They didn't need to ask, they knew. Around 8, the front door opened without a knock. My heart sank. There they were, Mom, holding a tray of store-bought sugar cookies, Dad, stiff and silent, Lucas, hands raised like he came in peace, Lauren, no baby this time, just heavy makeup and that permanent pout. "Merry Christmas," they said in unison, like it was still their holiday to claim. The room went quiet, the music cutting through the tension. My cousin Jordan stood up, arms crossed, his firefighter build making him look like a wall. Aunt Clara, wiping her hands on a dish towel, gave me a look that said, "I've got your back." Mom smiled, too bright. "We came to make amends," she said. Lauren jumped in, her voice climbing. "We just need space, Maya. For the kids. We didn't mean to cause trouble." Her words turned into a ramble, then tears, as she sank into a chair, hands over her face, crying loud enough to wake the neighbors. "It's not fair," she sobbed. "A woman with 4 kids in a crowded house, while you have all this and no family." The room froze. I stood there, arms at my sides, feeling the sting of her words, but refusing to flinch. Aunt Clara spoke first, her voice sharp. "You had a family, Ivy. 2 kids. But you erased Maya when she needed you." She stepped closer. "You celebrated Lucas's every breath and left her to fend for herself." Jordan chimed in, his tone low but firm. "You tried to steal her house. That's not a mistake, that's theft." Then Grandmother Evelyn, who'd been quiet all night, spoke from the hallway, her voice soft but cutting. "I saw the fake lease. I saw the broken lock. And I saw the years you left her out of every photo, every holiday." She looked at me, her eyes steady. "You don't owe them anything, Maya." The silence was heavy, like the air before a storm. Mom stepped back, the cookies still in her hands. Lauren's tears stopped, her face pale. Lucas stared at the floor. Dad opened the door, muttering, "Merry Christmas," but it sounded empty. They left without another word, the cookies abandoned on the counter. The music started again, hesitant, and Jordan poured more wine. No one mentioned what happened, but the warmth returned, like the house was breathing again. I felt seen, not just by my guests, but by myself. They tried to take my home, my peace, but they couldn't touch this. After they left, I stepped onto the porch, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, the cold biting my face. The yard was quiet, the camper glowing faintly under the streetlights. One of my cousins had slept out there, curious about my old life, and left it tidy, the quilt folded neatly on the bench. I ran my hand along the camper's side, remembering the nights I'd lain inside, teeth clenched, promising myself I'd never beg again. I hadn't. The grass was still patchy where Lucas's moving truck had parked, a single zip tie glinting in the dirt, a remnant of their failed plan. They'd come with smiles, then with tears, but never with an apology. That was the thing about them. They didn't believe in consequences, only in getting their way. But last night, 10 people filled my home with laughter, shared food, and stayed late, not because they wanted something, but because they saw me. Christmas morning was quiet, the house smelling of coffee and Clara's pie. Blankets were folded, wine glasses stacked, a half-eaten slice of pie left on the counter, the kind of mess that meant people felt at home. I stepped outside, the frost sparkling on my truck. The camper sat just beyond the fence, a reminder of the years I'd survived alone. I walked to the porch, my breath visible in the cold, and paused at the door. They'd said I had no family, but this house, these people, this life I'd built, that was my family. I reached up and flipped off the porch light. No one was coming back, and I didn't need to leave it on anymore. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and the kind of triumph that comes from standing your ground. If my story hit you, stirred something in your heart, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every home, every fight, every moment of finding your people tells a story of resilience and new beginnings. Keep building your own truth, and I'll meet you at the table.